Welcome to Yoga Chats with me, your host, Greg Walsh. Today, my guest is Tony Keogh, head chef in Dublin's longest running vegetarian and vegan restaurant, Cornucopia. Tony has a few key interests, yoga being one, which is how I know Tony. Animals, particularly cats. Tony and I have had a few cat chats of late, and veganism, that really is Tony's passion. So to me, veganism always has been more an ethical decision than a dietary decision. And this is one of the things I'd like to talk to Tony about today. Tony, you're so welcome.
Thank you, Greg. It's great to be here. I have to say. Yeah.
It's great. I was really keen to have a recorded chat with you, a yoga chat with you today. So thanks so much for joining us. And so Tony, you're a vegan, you're a yogi, you're a head chef. How did you get here?
Oh God, several ways, Greg. I got into the yoga actually. I think it was around. I took it up first in about 2007, on and off, and then I got more into it then around 2012, I think. And I've been practicing more or less consistently since. I did the training with yourself then in 2017, and I loved that. I have to say that was fantastic. That was the most thorough training I've ever had. It was brilliant. I learned so much. In terms of being a vegan, I was actually vegetarian for about 20 years prior. I became vegetarian in 1994. I wanted to be vegetarian before that, but I didn't really know how. Growing up in the 80s and 90s in Dublin, the food wasn't fantastic. There wasn't, I'm sure you remember yourself, Greg. Yeah, you're probably around my own age. The food wasn't
Dublin,
great.
Ireland is a different country. It's a different universe to what it was, isn't it? In terms of food, in terms of everything, but food.
Yeah,
wow,
it's unbelievable. All those stews and coddles and overcooked meats, green veg that was boiled to greyness. So I didn't really know where to start. But I remember I was 19 and I just said, right, I want to do it. And I remember the day I made the decision. I was actually watching a Rasta documentary, and there was a guy on, I forget who it was, might be Bunny Whaler or someone, and he was saying, I don't eat the fish because the fish enjoys his life. Why do I have the right to take his life to feed my life? Just like a revelation. I went, right, never again. And I haven't eaten meat since. And that's 27 years ago. So I was vegetarian for a long time, and then I went vegan there about 5 years ago. It was a long time coming. I was only starting to become aware, I suppose, about 6 or 7 years ago about the treatment of animals for dairy and eggs. I didn't really think much about it. I always thought that humans and cows, for example, had a symbiotic relationship. They were happy out in the fields. I didn't really think about veal, and the veal was a byproduct of dairy. And with eggs, I didn't really think about what happened to the male chicks, the ones that couldn't lay. It's only when I became aware of those two things that I went, okay, right, I've got to stop. So I stopped eating, or stopped using dairy products and eggs then, which meant I had to kind of change my cookery style. I've been in Cornucopia for a long time now. I've been a vegetarian chef since 1996, I think, 97. But I've been in Cornucopia since 2002. So it's been a long time in there. But I made the decision to stop cooking vegetarian food and to cook vegan food then about 5 or 6 years ago, just solely focused on vegan food. So it was a bit of a kind of a change because vegetarian food is easier to cook. You have eggs, you have cheese, you have dairy, and they're great for flavor and texture and for adding depth to dishes. Like if you fry off butter and you throw in your spices, you can make a beautiful curry. Eggs, you can make most beautiful light fluffy quiches and mousses. Cheese, we all know cheese, yeah. Toasted cheese sandwiches, yourself. Cheesy pasta. So it was a bit of a kind of a sea change in my cookery then. So I had to kind of relearn, particularly with baking.
I've seen some of your, you've done, we've had online retreats and you have done like a cook along, which has been delicious, informative, but also a lot of fun. But something that I've noticed that you do, and I've chatted to you, we've talked food before, and something I noticed that you love to focus on is recreating foods that you would usually need cheese or eggs or whatever in, and getting creative with the ingredients. So you're making a vegan version of it, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I like to do that, Greg. I like to. I think because we all grew up eating certain foods as well. We all have fond memories of different burgers and pizzas and chocolates and cakes that we all grew up with. And I suppose there's a certain comfort in food. And for a lot of people, I think the transition from a regular diet or a vegetarian diet to a vegan diet is a bit daunting because they think the food's going to be alien, strange, or at best weird. So if you can recreate to the best ability you can the flavors and textures of those foods, you're going to persuade more people to try them. So I spent a lot of time trying to work out flavors and textures, and there's a lot of information online, a lot of cookbooks, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of ideas that work really well, and ideas that just don't work. I've had some terrible days here in the kitchen at home. You're pulling your, well, no hair to pull out, but pulling my hair out, proverbially. Trying to figure things out.
Yeah, the last time we had a chat, you were actually working on vegan chicken, and you were showing it to me on Zoom, and it looked like the real deal. And you said it tasted like the real deal, which
Yeah,
yeah,
I was very, very happy with, particularly the texture, Greg. The flavor is reasonable, but I'm doing a bit more work on the flavor now. I've actually been reading up on like just what the kind of flavors that constitute chicken. You know,
right.
the base flavors that you can kind of imitate chicken flavors with. What
Yeah.
spice and herb mixes to use to try and get those flavors. So I'm working on that at the moment. So hopefully I get the flavor and the texture right. That's the plan anyway. We started in Cornucopia now using the that chicken mix I made. We're making chicken Caesar wraps. We just started in there the other day, and they're flying off the shelves, which is
Wow.
great.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the restaurant's quiet, and I think I made 10 of them the other day or 9 of them the other day, and by the time I left, it all sold. And I mean, like that's nothing on a normal day before pandemic, but at the moment to sell 9 or 10 of an item is like it's unheard of, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's really great. Yeah, it's wonderful. There's a real sea change going on, it feels, at the moment. I know I became vegetarian maybe a year or two after you. I got into Buddhism, and from that I got into vegetarianism very much from the ethical point of view. And then I that kind of drew me to yoga. That was sort of my path. Um, I find a lot of yogis these days seem to be into the vegetarian movement more, or vegan, more for dietary reasons. It was more that I just didn't want to eat a being. So, with that in mind, is there a difference between vegan and plant-based? Because plant-based is very much a buzzword these days. So, what's going on there?
yeah, plant-based is a bit of a buzzword these days. I suppose plant-based is the more mainstream version of, I suppose, not even mainstream. I suppose a bit of context. I suppose vegetarians, like I suppose even 10 or 15 years ago, vegetarian was seen as pretty left field, and veganism was extreme because A, because it was very difficult, and B, because often people who were vegan at the time were quite radical in their beliefs, and well, not even radical. They were actually probably right in a lot of ways, but because it was so far left of what the conventional perspective was, it was seen as being extreme. But I suppose that kind of slider has moved now a little bit more to the left naturally, just as time progresses. People become more left leaning, I suppose, in some ways, and they're more acceptant of those kind of those views, and they become more mainstream. So as veganism has become more mainstream, I suppose plant-based is a kind of a buzzword to explain people who are on a plant-based diet. You're kind of splitting hairs between the two terms in some ways. But I suppose if there was a distinction, you could say someone who was following a vegan lifestyle, like an extreme, like not an extreme vegan lifestyle. Don't use the word extreme because it's not extreme. But somebody who's following a vegan lifestyle to the letter will be somebody who avoids all animal products in every form. So they'd be very concerned about their clothes, their leather in their shoes, leather belts. They'd be looking at cosmetics. They might even be looking at things like chemicals. I suppose paints even. Like there's so many things. It's a minefield. Like there's animal products in so many everyday items in your house. Like from the glue in your shoes to the paint on
Yeah.
your
So
walls.
it's not even just the leather, it's the glue. I've never thought that far into it. I tried being a dietary vegan, I think about 95, maybe 96, and I lasted about 3 months. But of course, Ireland
It's like
was a
hard.
different culinary universe then. But I was living beside Georgia Street in Dublin city centre. And once I was close to, there's a big health food store there in Georgia Street. And of course, you guys, Cornucopia, were around the corner. Once I was there, I was fine. But if I went, if I went outside that sphere, a cheese sandwich was as vegan as you were going to get. And I remember, I remember doing a retreat abroad, 2005, I think it was. And it was so challenging because I wasn't vegan, I was vegetarian, but where we went, they thought that chicken didn't count. So when we said, can we vegetarian, they were offering us chicken or fish. So, but I think all of that, nearly everywhere in Europe definitely has really shifted. And I think it's much more acceptable. Acceptable is not the word, it's just more prevalent, more
Much more
doable.
prevalent. Yeah. It's definitely a sea change, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen that as well. It's
yeah,
great to see. It's great to see. Like it's definitely
yeah,
I suppose there's probably like the percentage of populations that are going vegan in different countries are massive as well. I think in
yeah,
the UK, I think it could
yeah.
be something like 3 to 5% of the population are vegan. It could be
Which,
up to 12 to 15% even are vegetarian. It's like
yeah.
it's pretty massive.
Yeah, it's a
I think
huge
that
shift. And with
it's a
that in
huge
mind,
shift.
if someone wanted to move toward a vegetarian or vegan diet, um, what would you recommend? How would they, where would they go? What would they
Yeah,
start with?
well, I suppose that the substitutes now are great. I mean, like there's so many ways of substituting meats, dairy, and eggs. We say we're moving towards a vegan diet, for example. Like the milks now available are really good. Oat milk is very close to dairy milk in terms of taste and flavor. So that's a really good one for your cereal.
Oat milk and hot chocolate,
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
fantastic. It's lovely, isn't it? It's so creamy. It's
Fluffy.
lovely. Soya milk is very good because soya milk is actually probably the closest in nutritional value to your regular dairy milk. Now, that's minerals and vitamins, not
Mm.
without the minerals and vitamins, more just the protein and
Yes,
fat content.
yes,
They were my two favorite milks. In
yeah.
terms of the cheeses, now you can make some really interesting cheeses now.
Hmm.
It's possible to make cheese because cheese is just like it's just milk curdled. So if you can replicate milk to some extent, a plant-based milk, you just use the same techniques and you compare things that are pretty similar to cheese.
Yeah,
It's hard to
yeah,
replicate the stretchiness, but there are cheats. You can use tapioca and stuff.
right.
Or else, of
Yeah,
course, you can just
yeah.
go to the supermarket and buy one of the really good ones. Tesco's actually do quite a good vegan cheese at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, it's not bad at
Okay.
all. And
That's, I find an amazing thing. It's so accessible now, isn't it? It's so
yeah,
like you can
it's
get it
so
in
amazing.
Tesco, you can get it in all of the shops.
Yeah, the one in Tesco's is actually quite good. They're it's like Red Leicester cheese slices. They're really nice.
No
Um,
way.
the vegan meats now as well. There's tofu, seitan, tempeh, and jackfruit. Jackfruit is you've probably seen that in some menus. Or
Haven't
jackfruit.
tried it. Looking forward to trying it.
Nice. I'll have to make some for you, Greg, at one of our cook along sometime. It's interesting.
I'm down with that,
Unusual
Tony.
ingredient. It works really well. Then you can actually make your own. You can make your, as Greg was talking about the chicken shreds earlier. You can buy vital gluten flour, which is basically the gluten extracted from wheat. You can even make your own vital gluten from regular wheat flour. You
Hmm.
can look it up. You can look it up online.
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah,
Wash the wheat. Yeah, I think it's, if you just type in "wash the wheat" into your browser, you'll come up with ways of washing the gluten out of your wheat, and
sure.
that's a really good source of protein. It's comparable to many meat sources. Tofu is a good source of protein. And then in terms of what you might be lacking, like a vitamin B12, you'd usually take a supplement of B12. B12 is not actually naturally, it's in the soil. So animals eat the grass and it gets into their bodies, so we eat that.
Gotcha.
Also, if you get some seaweeds, they found trace bit of vitamin B12 in, but it's not that, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not that certain. So I'd say just to be sure with your B12 will be to try and
We
stick to
take
supplements.
nutritional yeast.
Yeah,
That stuff. It's almost got a parmesan-y sort of a flavor, and we just sprinkle it over pasta and whatnot. Does that have the B12?
yeah, you can buy the fortified version of a B12. That's what I've got that there as well. It's great. It has that lovely cheesy flavor. I
Yeah.
use that as well. It's brilliant, isn't it? Great
Yeah,
stuff.
it's great stuff. Yeah, it is. I really like it. Yeah. And I'm not vegan. I do eat cheese, and I appreciate what you're saying. And you've given me food for thought. But yeah, we are incorporating little things like that because I think for me, um, reducing is the stage we're at the moment, and feeling great on it.
I think that's the way to go. I think even just reducing. I mean, like meat-free Mondays. This idea of like just cutting back on meat or dairy, like for 1 or 2 days a week. I mean, like that's 1 or 2 meals you haven't had to use an animal for to eat, and also you feel better. It's
Yeah.
good for your diet. good for the environment. It's so ethical, dietary, and environmental.
Yeah.
They're the three main tenets of why you would consider kind of moving away from eating
Yeah.
meat and dairy. And it's actually pretty easy these days. I mean, the amount of things you can get now. You know, you go to the supermarket, there's aisles and aisles full of products now. You can get refrigerated products, dry goods, even some of the fruits and vegetables you can get now are fantastic. You know, the array, the variety. Sure, I remember God, when I was younger, yeah, do you remember yourself? There was like, what's an aubergine?
Yeah, I know, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, we have come a long way. Ireland has come a long way. Everyone has come a long way. And Tony, I know you on your Instagram, you do you regularly post up recipes. Do you put videos, or is it
Oh
more
yeah,
recipes?
I put up recipes, and I'd put up recipes and ideas, and then people can always direct message me for more information. And my Insta is actually plant plates. So you just look up Tony Keogh plant plates if anyone's having a look here. But it's plates with a PLAYTES as in play.
And I'll put
Playing
that
plant. Yeah,
in the notes of this.
brilliant.
So yeah, okay, brilliant. So Tony, I've really enjoyed the chat. I've learned something. I hope our listeners and viewers have learned something too. So on behalf of everyone who's tuning in today, I would like to thank you very much for taking your time, because I know you're a very busy man. And that's all for now, folks. Thanks, Tony. Thank everyone. Thank all of you at home for connecting. And I look forward to seeing you for more yoga chat soon.